Parashat Masei, Numbers 33, verses 1 to 36. These were the marches of the Israelites who started out from the land of Egypt, troop by troop, in the charge of Moses and Aaron. Moses recorded the starting points of their various marches as directed by Hashem. Their marches by starting points were as follows. They set out from Ramesses in the first month of the 15th day of the first month. It was on the morrow of the Passover offering that the Israelites started out defiantly, in plain view of all the Egyptians. The Egyptians, meanwhile, were burying those among them whom Hashem had struck down, every male firstborn, whereby Hashem executed judgment on their gods. The Israelites set out from Ramesses and encamped on Sukkot. They set out from Sukkot and encamped at Etham, which is on the edge of the wilderness. They set out from Etham and turned about toward Pin Hariot, which faces Baal Zephon, and they encamped before Migdol. They set out from Pene Hariot and passed through the sea into the wilderness, and they made a 3 days journey in the wilderness of Etam and encamped at Marah. They set out from Marah and came to Elim. There were 12 springs in Elim and 70 palm trees, so they encamped there. They set out from Elim and encamped by the Sea of Reeds.
Second Aliyah. They set out from the Sea of Reeds and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. They set out from the wilderness of Sin and encamped at Dophkah. They set out from Dophkah and encamped at Alush. They set out from Alush and encamped in Rephidim. It was there that the people had no water to drink. They set out from Rephidim and encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. They set out from the wilderness of Sinai and encamped at Kibroth Hata'avah. They set out from Kibroth Hata'avah and encamped at Hazerot. They set out from Hazerot and encamped in Ritmah. They set out from Ritmah and encamped at Rimon Perez. They set out from Rimon Perez and encamped at Libnah. They set out from Libnah and encamped at Risah. They set out from Risah and encamped at Kehelat. They set out from Kehelat and encamped at Mount Shefer. They set out from Mount Shefer and encamped at Haradah. They set out from Haradah and encamped at Machelot. They set out from Machelot and encamped at Tahat. They set out from Tahat and encamped at Terah. They set out from Terah and encamped at Mitcha. They set out from Mitcha and encamped at Hashmonah. They set out from Hashmonah and encamped at Moserot. They set out from Moserot and encamped at B'nei Yisrael. They set out from B'nei Yisrael and encamped at Hor Haggidgad. They set out from Hor Haggidgad and encamped at Jotbath. They set out from Jotbath and encamped at Abronah. They set out from Abronah and encamped at Ezion Geber. They set out from Ezion Geber and encamped in the wilderness of Zin, that is, Kadesh. They set out from Mount Kadesh and encamped at Mount Hor, on the edge of the land of Edom. Aaron the priest ascended Mount Hor at the command of God and died there in the 40th year after the Israelites had left the land of Egypt on the first day of the 5th month. Aaron was 123 years old when he died at Mount Hor, and the Canaanite, king of Arad, who dwelt in the Negev, in the land of Canaan, learned of the coming of the Israelites. They set out from Mount Hor and encamped at Zalmonah. They set out from Zalmonah and encamped at Punon. They set out from Punon and encamped at Oboth. They set out from Oboth and encamped at Iye Abarim in the territory of Moab. They set out from Iyim and encamped at Dibon Gad. They set out from Dibon Gad and encamped at Almon Diblatayim. They set out from Almon Diblatayim and encamped in the hills of Abarim before Nebo. They set out from the hills of Abarim and encamped in the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho. They encamped by the Jordan from Bet Jezimot as far as Abel Shittim in the steppes of Moab.
Third Aliyah. In the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho, Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you shall dispossess all the inhabitants of the land. You shall destroy all their figured objects. You shall destroy all their molten images, and you shall demolish all their cult places. You shall take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have assigned the land to you to possess. You shall apportion the land among yourselves by lot, clan by clan, with larger groups. Increase the share with smaller groups. Reduce the share. Whatever the lot falls for it, that shall be its location. You shall have your portions according to your ancestral tribes. But if you do not dispossess the inhabitants of the land, those whom you allow to remain shall be stings in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the lands in which you live, so that I will do to you what I had planned to do to them. 34. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Instruct the Israelite people and say to them, When you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that you shall fall to as your own portion, the land of Canaan with its various boundaries. Your southern sector shall extend from the wilderness of Zin, alongside a dome. Your southern boundary shall start on the east from the tip of the Dead Sea. Your boundary shall then turn to pass south of the accent of Akrabim and continue to Zin, and its limit shall be south of Kadesh Barnea, reaching Hazar Adar and continuing to Asmon. From Asmon, the boundary shall turn toward the Wadi of Egypt and terminate at the sea. For the western boundary, you shall have the coast of the Great Sea. That shall serve as your western boundary. This shall be your northern boundary. Draw a line from the Great Sea to Mount Hor. From Mount Hor, draw a line to Lebo Hamath, and let the boundary reach Sadad. The boundary shall then run to Zippor and terminate at Hezronon. That shall be your northern boundary. For the eastern boundary, you shall draw a line at Hazaron to Sapham. The boundary shall descend to Rabbah on the east side of Anit. From there, the boundary shall continue downward and about on the eastern slopes of the Sea of Chinith. The boundary shall then descend along the Jordan and terminate at the Dead Sea. That shall be your land as defined by its boundaries on all sides. Moshe instructed the Israelites, saying, This is the land you are to receive by the lot as your hereditary portion, which Hashem has commanded to be given to the 9.5 tribes. For the Reubenite tribe, by its ancestral houses, the Gadite tribe, by its ancestral houses, and the half-tribe by Manasseh have already received their portions. Those 2.5 tribes have received their portions across the Jordan, opposite Jericho, on the east, the orient side.
Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, These are the names of the participants through whom the land shall be apportioned for you, Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun. And you shall also take a chieftain from each tribe through whom the land shall be apportioned. These are the names of the participants. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. From the Simeonite tribe, Samuel son of Ammihud. From the tribe of Benjamin, Elidad, son of Chislon. From the Danite tribe, a chieftain, Buki, son of Jogli. From the descendants of Joseph, from the Manassite tribe, a chieftain, Haniel, son of Ephod. And from the Ephraimite tribe, a chieftain, Kemuel, son of Shiftan. From the Zebulunite tribe, a chieftain, Elizaphan, son of Parnach. From the Issacharite tribe, a chieftain, Paltiel, son of Azan. From the Asherite tribe, a chieftain, Achihud, son of Shalomi. From the Naphthalite tribe, a chieftain, Pedahel, son of Ammihud. It was these whom Adonai designated to allot portions to the Israelites in the land of Canaan.
Fifth Aliyah. Hashem spoke to Moses in the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho, saying, Instruct the Israelite people to assign, out of the holdings apportioned to them, towns for the Levites to dwell in. You shall also assign to the Levites pasture land around their towns. The towns shall be theirs to dwell in, and the pasture shall be for the cattle they own and all their other beasts. The town pasture that you are to assign to the Levites shall extend 1,000 cubits outside the town wall, all around. You shall measure off 2,000 cubits outside the town on the east side, 2,000 on the south side, 2,000 on the west side, and 2,000 on the north side, with the town in the center. That shall be the pasture for their towns. The towns that you assign to the Levites shall comprise the 6 cities of refuge that you are to designate for a man who has killed someone to flee to which you shall add 42 towns. Thus the total of the towns that you assign to the Levites shall be 48 towns with their pasture. In assigning towns from the holdings of the Israelites, take more from the larger groups and take less from the smaller, so that each assigns towns to the Levites in proportion to the share it receives.
Sixth Aliyah. Hashem spoke further to Moses. Speak to the Israelite people and say to them, when you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you shall provide yourselves with places to serve as cities of refuge to which a man who has killed someone, who has slain a person unintentionally, may flee. The cities shall serve you as a refuge from the avenger, so that the killer may not die unless he has stood trial before the assembly. The towns that you thus assign shall be 6 cities of refuge in all. 3 cities shall be designated beyond the Jordan, and the other 3 shall be designated in the land of Canaan. They shall serve as cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall serve the Israelites and the resident aliens among them for refuge, so that any man who slays a person unintentionally may flee there. Anyone, however, who strikes another with an iron object so that death results is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. If one struck another with a stone tool that could cause death, and death resulted, that person is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. Similarly, if one struck another with a wooden tool that would cause death, and death resulted, that person is a murderer. The murderer must be put to death. It is the blood avenger who shall put the murderer to death. That is, who shall put that person to death upon encounter. So too, if one pushed another in hate, or hurled something at the victim on purpose, and death resulted, or if one struck another with the hand in enmity, and death resulted, the assailant shall be put to death. That person is a murderer. The blood avenger shall put the murderer to death upon encounter. But if a man pushed without malice or forethought, or hurled any object at the victim unintentionally or inadvertently dropped upon the victim any deadly object or stone, and death resulted, though not being an enemy and not seeking to harm. In such cases, the assembly shall decide between the slayer and the blood avenger. The assembly shall protect the killer from the blood avenger. The assembly shall restore him to the city of refuge to which he fled. There he shall remain until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with the sacred oil. But if the killer ever goes outside the limits of the city of refuge to which he has fled, and the blood avenger comes upon him outside the limits of his city of refuge, and the blood avenger kills the killer, there is no blood guilt on his account, for he must remain inside his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. After the death of the high priest, the killer may return to his land holding. Such shall be your law of procedure throughout all the ages in all your settlements. If anyone slays a person, the killer may be executed only on the evidence of witnesses. The testimony of a single witness against a person shall not suffice for a sentence of death. You may not accept a ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of a capital crime. A murderer must be put to death. Nor may you accept ransom in lieu of flight to a city of refuge, enabling a man to return to live on his land before the death of the priest. You shall not pollute the land in which you live, for blood pollutes the land, and the land can have no expiation for blood that is shed on it, except by the blood of the one who shed it. You shall not defile the land in which you live, in which I myself abide. For I, Hashem, abide among the Israelite people.
Seventh Aliyah. The family heads in the clan of the descendants of Gilad, the son of Machir, son of Menashe, one of the Josephite clans, came forward and appealed to Moses and the chieftains, family heads of the Israelites. They said, Hashem commanded my Lord to assign the land to the Israelites as shares by lot. And my Lord was further commanded by Hashem to assign the share of our kinsman Zelophehad to his daughters. Now, if they become the wives of persons from another Israelite tribe, their share will be cut off from our ancestral portion and be added to the portion of the tribe into which they become wives. Thus, our allotted portion will be diminished. And even when the Israelites observe the Jubilee, their share will be added to that of the tribe into which they become wives, and their share will be cut off from the ancestral portion of our tribe. So Moses, at Hashem's bidding, instructed the Israelites, saying, the plea of the Josephite tribe is just. This is what Hashem has commanded concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. They may become the wives of anyone they wish, provided they become wives within a clan of their father's tribe. No inheritance of the Israelites may pass over from one tribe to another, but the Israelite heirs, each of them, must remain bound to the ancestral portion of their tribe. Every daughter among the Israelite tribes who inherits a share must become the wife of someone from a clan of her father's tribe, in order that every Israelite heir may keep an ancestral share. There is no inheritance, thus no inheritance shall pass over from one tribe to another, but the Israelite tribes shall remain bound, each to its portion. The daughters of Zelophehad did as Hashem had commanded Moses. Mahlah, Tirzah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Noah, Zelophehad's daughters, became the wives of their uncle's sons, becoming wives within clans of descendants of Manasseh, son of Joseph, and so their share remained in the tribe of their father's clan. These are the commandments and regulations that Hashem enjoined upon the Israelites through Moses on the steppes of Moab at the Jordan near Jericho.